Hey guys, welcome to our podcast. This is the Everything OB podcast. Today I have special guests with me that are here to speak about everything to do with organizational behavior. And so on my left I have Owami Radebe, and she will be answering a very interesting question. What is organizational behavior and why is it important in the company?
Hi everyone. So, OB, organizational behavior, is the study of how people interact within group settings and individually within an organization, and how these interactions affect the overall performance of the organization. So, the main purpose of the study is to improve job performance, job satisfaction, absenteeism, and to reduce the overall turnover rate. Funny enough, OB actually wasn't recognized by the American Psychological Association, as it was seen as too broad and new. But then after the 1970s, it was officially recognized and now is part of HR as we know it.
Thank you for that, Owami. Hope you guys are learning. So, our next question that we have to tackle from Dumisho will be the importance and effect of linking individuals in the workplace, and that will be person job fit and person organization fit. So if you can tackle that for us, that would be great, sir.
Alright, thank you so much. So, when talking about this particular topic, we first need to identify what is person job fit and person organization fit. So, in a nutshell, person job fit just pertains to an organization's obligation to match an individual with their respective job. So, when outsourcing, when looking for new recruits, this is their main prerogative, to look for the individuals that will be best suited for the particular role. This could be internal and external. For example, when they go through the process of selecting the next CEO for Coca-Cola, you'd find that they might do an internal recruitment process looking for the best suitable candidates within the organization, and if not so, they then spread the message to those outside of the organization, trying to find those who are best suited for the role. Right. So when it comes to person organization fit, this is more tailored to the employee themselves. So you'd find generally this is an individual that is looking for an organization that best suits them, and the reasoning behind this differs from person to person. Sometimes it would be motivated by the organizational culture, sometimes it's monetary, they're just in it for the money, as some of you know, and some of them are there to achieve a certain career path. Some go to these organizations to get to a certain point within their career or to elevate their career. Now, why are these two elements so important? When looking at person job fit, it's crucial because it helps the organization establish a greater job satisfaction amongst the employees and increase the overall process performance. So you'd find that employees that are best suited to their roles will find better fulfillment in the workspace, they feel valued, they are thoroughly engaged in what they're doing, and thus they'd be more willing to put out their best effort in the organization. It reduces stress and burnout, so this is a no-brainer. Essentially, if you're given the right task, you won't feel overwhelmed. You'll know what you need to do. You won't feel that you have to overcompensate than what you're already providing. There's a low turnover rate when we look at person job fit. So, as I mentioned, those who are allocated to the correct roles will generally be satisfied within the organization, and as a result, will begin to feel a sense of loyalty and not want to leave the organization because they're happy where they've been established and they feel comfortable with the role that they're doing. And then lastly, it enhances motivation and commitment. As I just mentioned now, similar to personal organization fit, it helps you build a stronger commitment and loyalty to the organization, as we've discussed. It also fosters a very positive work environment for the employees in question. You find that employees who have taken the initiative to choose the organization that best suits them will be better suited to thrive within the organization and will be more synergistic amongst their fellow employees, colleagues, and employees. Again, it also supports job satisfaction and reduces conflict, so you won't see much friction when it comes to the employees and the employees. It's just a very smooth work environment. And overall, it just fosters a healthy organizational culture.
All right, thank you, Dumisho, for the insightful answer that you had on person job fit and person organization fit. I'd just like to move on to Sharon. We have a very interesting question for you, which is the influence of perception on individuals' decision making and judgment within the workplace. Can you start by defining to us what perception is?
What is basically perception? Perception is how people interpret information. It affects decisions that employees make in the workplace, and that it can make them feel misunderstood or unvalued or frustrated. For example, we're all in a board meeting and then one decides to keep quiet while the others talk and engage with whatever topic that they're talking about. So the other one that is quiet, the manager might perceive that person as a person that is not interested in whatever that they're talking about, or a person that does not like their work. But then when we face reality, it's not always about boredom and all that. So it's all about, it might be that the person is actually processing the information and trying to understand what they actually talking about in that specific boardroom.
Your next question, I guess, would be, what biases do you believe can influence workplace decisions?
Biases like the halo effect, Horn effect, and confirmation bias can lead to unfair treatment, which can lower the morale of employees in the workplace, lead to low job satisfaction, and lead to employees not trusting each other, which can also increase the amount of conflicts happening in the workplace.
So you mentioned the halo effect. Understanding correctly, halo effect is when, for example, the manager favors one of the employees over the others and all that. Would you say that's...
Yes.
That would cause that kind of friction within the workplace?
Yes, it does. For example, an outgoing employee is promoted over a more qualified, quiet employee, making the quiet employee feel frustrated and more demotivated.
So how can organizations reduce perceptual bias?
Use bias training, structured decisions, open communication, and 360 feedback to ensure fairness, improve satisfaction, and boost engagement. For example, by doing promotion checklists, focus on skills, helping employees feel recognized and motivated.
Thank you for that. I think that's our last question. And I believe I will be taking on the last question, which is how motivation theories influence job attitudes and behavior. So when we take a look at motivational theories, we first have to understand what is motivation, right? And motivation is the psychological driving force that leads to certain behaviors from individuals in the workplace, right? And when you look at job attitudes, right, we are simply speaking about the evaluation that an employee has about their job. So that will include beliefs, feelings, and so forth, right? And there are a couple of motivational theories that we can dive into, such as the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the Herzenberg's two-factor theory of hygiene. We look at as well the social learning theory, among, just to name a few, I guess. And if you look at the social learning theory, right, for example, I'll use that as an example. The social learning theory simply states that individuals are able to learn through observation, right? And what that essentially means is that when individuals observe certain behaviors within the workplace, they're able to adapt those behaviors, right? So you will see that individuals begin to adapt behaviors that they see from, say, for example, their leaders or management or colleagues, right, that they're working with, right? And so this inversely influences how they operate or interact within the workplace and can influence their job attitudes and behaviors, right, depending on whether the behavior in itself is reinforced or punished, right? And then we look at another theory that I can maybe give an example of would be the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right, which you have about 5 different needs that can potentially motivate an employee, right, depending on where it is the employee places the most importance, right? And so I'll give you an example of the physiological needs, right? Organizations can often provide, shall I say, job security towards employees, right? And these job security, they do this usually through like long-term contracts and so forth, right? And this allows an employees to be more stable within their finances and cater to their physiological needs, right? And if you look at, as well as another theory I can give an example of would be the Herzenberg's two-factor theory, right? Which simply states that there are 2 different factors, right, that can influence an individual's motivation and employees' behavior and job attitudes, right? And these 2 factors include motivators and hygiene factors. The hygiene factors are factors that a job cannot go without, right? So this would be things like salaries or the lighting condition within the workplace. They're not necessarily motivators, but their lack of presence would lead to dissatisfaction of employees, right? And then if you look at motivators are simply what allows an employee to engage, what allows an employee to go the extra mile. So these motivators could include things such as acknowledging employee for their behaviors, right? If an employee does something, you acknowledge that behavior, and the employee is more likely to repeat that behavior because it has been acknowledged, right? And if you look at issues such as career development, right, they give employees more ownership, more feeling of growth, right? These things often lead to motivation. And I noticed that Dumisha also touched on motivation as well. And so if you look at motivation as a whole, it just links into organizational behavior as well. So that's our podcast, I guess, for the day. And I hope you learned something and are able to take this with you into your workplace.
Subscribe.
Of course, yeah. So this was the Everything Organizational Behavior podcast, and thank you for taking your time to listen. And please, like Owami said, do share, like, comment, and subscribe. Have a lovely day. Bye.